from the CyberHub bunker and studio. You're listening to the CISO Talk Podcast. No sales, no bullshit, just straight talk. Straight talk. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, April 22nd, a special show this Friday. Really kind of wanted to come out, have a conversation about why Israel is the cyber capital of the world. I've been to Israel dozens of times since I started my career in cyber. I lived there for 5 years. And we're always talking about the lack of talent that exists here in the US when it comes to cyber security talent. It just doesn't exist. We can't find it. We can't find good people. We can't find the right people for the roles we're trying to fill. And in retrospect, having spent time between both countries, there's a few different things that kind of, I think, lay the groundwork to what would be considered a how do you start addressing the talent gap? How do you start building the talent from very early on? That's the point of today's show. Ask your questions in the comments, comment along. You don't have to agree. You can agree to disagree. There's obviously cultural differences. There's a bunch of different things that go on with this. But definitely want to have this discussion. And I want to have it for a multitude of reasons. Let me start off with the first one. Right here, right now. First, welcome. Subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to our CyberHub Podcast YouTube channel, you don't understand what you're missing. Conversations like this that I'm going to be doing. This one here is about a 30-minute conversation, so it's going to be very short, but very, very to the point. I've got some talking points I want to address. And it'll be posted on our audio channel, so you can go to Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and you can get it either on the CISO Talk Podcast or CyberHub Podcast. I'll post it on both channels, so you can get it there no matter where you subscribe. You'll be able to find it. Go check it out, cyberhubpodcast.com, our website. You can go check it out there. My double espresso for this conversation. I hope to finish it with y'all while we're having a nice talk. So coffee cup cheers. This week's been really crazy. The shift in cybersecurity has been unbelievable, right? For a lot of us practitioners, what we've seen happen over the last 3 to 4 months, it's been taking years in other industries and other talent and other lines of business and so forth. But let's get into why is Israel the cyber capital of the world? And there's a few reasons why. First of all, the IDF, right? The IDF is just a petri dish of taking care of and developing talent for Israel. They just are. But something struck me while I was in Israel. So one evening, it was actually one morning. I'm sitting with my wife. We're watching local Israeli television, one of the morning shows on the Israeli television. And in Israel, commercials are like, we're going to commercial the living life out of you before we go back to the show. It's like 5-6 minutes of commercials. Like a lot of us here in the States would go freaking crazy. I go crazy watching it. I'm like, I can't deal with this stuff. I can't watch another commercial. And it's typically all the same people in all the different commercials. It'll be like a Noah Kuril, who's an Israeli artist, or Eyal Berkovich, a famous soccer player, and a few entertainers. And that's about it. And it's all commercial after commercial after commercial after commercial. But then there was one commercial. And this commercial was different from all other commercials. It had not all the people on there are important, but none of them are celebrities. None of them are household names. But they were all the CEO of Intel Israel, the CEO of Microsoft Israel, a few entrepreneurs that have started really big companies in Israel. And they were talking about how they got to where they got. That was a very interesting commercial for me because all of a sudden it didn't have any of the kitschy music. It didn't have any of the gimmick. It was just these people. And they were from all walks of life from Israel, whether they were Hasidic Jews to secular Jews to Israeli Arabs, you name it. Their names and their titles of what they're doing. And all of them said they started in technology in middle school. And then they encouraged people to pick what they want to do in the military and what they want to do in their life already in middle school, meaning go to your middle school and start studying technology, coding, security, whatever it is that you want to do, engineering, architecture, whatever it is that you want to do, starts in middle school. How fascinating. One great commercial. I was trying to find it so I can play it for you guys and translate it live. I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find it. I've been looking for it. And once I find it, I will post it. Um, Great commercial, right? The CEO of Microsoft Israel that reports to the CEO of Microsoft US. Um, a woman talks about her career in technology and how she did it. An Arab Israeli who's leading an R&D team talks about what he did to get there. The CEO of Intel, next in line to succeed in Intel leadership, talks about the hard work. And they're not talking about just going to school. They're talking about applying yourself and understanding that it takes hard work to do it. And I came back to the States. And watching TV. I was streaming something and it hit me Hulu still has commercials. And it hit me at one point that all of our commercials are garbage and political in nature. And there's a whole conversation over kids in school and what they should be learning here in the US. And then we're not going to go down that conversation, but it hit me that we're not really addressing that the way the Israelis are. So Israel, for as politically divided as we are as a nation, go to Israel. They've got like 15 political parties. They have an election every year and a half because no government can hold on for longer than that because of the diversity that exists within all the different blocks. And, just one thing, this government right now is teetering on the edge in Israel. So there's not a different political landscape. The political landscape there is just as bad, if not worse, than the one we've got here in the US. But then there was one thing that could all agree on. We've got to get our kids in technology, and we've got to get them in technology now. And they're using these business leaders to do that. And that's driving people that when they are 18 and they're recruited into the IDF, they've already got so many skills coming into those roles. And that kind of took me down a path of, wow, what if we did the same here? What if we applied local community standards to go and look at our local business leaders and heroes and said, why don't you come and talk to our kids about what it took for you to be where you are? I feel like we highlight entertainers and athletes, but we don't highlight business leaders and what it took for them to get there. So there can only be so many NFL players. There can only be so many NBA players. There can only be so many Major League Baseball players. There can only be so many entertainers. But everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to have a conversation. Everyone thinks that their opinion matters. But then there are the people that are out there actually making a difference. Elon Musk is a great example of that. Right? People know Elon Musk because he's changed our lives in so many ways for the better. From PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, Elon Musk has put his money where his mouth is, and he's delivered. He's made a change. You can say the same about Bill Gates. You can say the same about the late Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak. Go down a whole list of people, right? Intel, HP. Go down a list. Right, we talk about the big brands, but there's so many others. Powerhouses. We don't see them in commercials. We're not talking about them. Why not? And I feel like that's where we're missing the cue. And I think that's where we could learn more from the Israelis. Why are they the cyber capital? They're starting to talk to their kids about this stuff at a very young age, elementary to middle school. The school system there is adopting a modern curriculum. So if someone isn't an athletic, should they have to go to gym every single day? Or should they go do a gym period once a week for the sake of physical activity, but then the rest of the time really apply themselves to something they're passionate about, like robotics, electronics, coding, whatever. And that kind of brings the conversation to why are we not doing this here locally? And this starts local. I think everyone kind of looks at the federal government for this. Don't look at the federal government. Look at your local government. Why aren't we doing this locally in our schools? Why aren't we updating the curriculum in our schools? It's very, very interesting as to why we're not doing it local. See, Israel, everyone knows everyone. I'll give you a funny, really, really funny story. So I was doing a bunch of vendor visits. As a CISO, I have plenty of vendors. A lot of them are based out of Israel. And I had scheduled a few days of meetings, 2, 3 days of meetings. um, Instead of spending time with family in the morning, I was going to Tel Aviv and spending time with some of our cybersecurity vendors. And there's these 3 buildings in Israel, one city block, right? A New York City block. And it probably houses 60% of the cybersecurity companies in the world that are based out of Israel there. Seriously, it's like the cyber Silicon Valley. I walked into the building and everyone, I could see, I knew people and what companies they were with. And I'm looking at the directory in the building and it's like, here's this company and this company. And I'm not going to name names, this company, and all these different companies. And they're all in this one building, 2 buildings, really. And there's a bunch of other smaller buildings on the back end of it. Everyone's there. And it was fascinating to see the ecosystem, right? Like, so all of these employees that work for competitors or whatnot, they all end up eating lunch in the same spot or grabbing coffee in the same place or, um, walking outside to go smoke in the same area. It was really fascinating. Um, and it kind of took me down the path of would that happen here in the States? We see that why Palo Alto, why Silicon Valley is because everyone's around everyone, right? That talent's there, it skips. The same applies there. It was really, really fascinating. I want to get to a question here. Paul, here's my coffee right here. Enjoying it. This is my espresso. I still have your whole human cyber initiative coffee right now. So there's that. Shout out to Paul and the whole human cyber initiative. Do you think it's due to the level of humbleness that Israelis grow up with? I don't know what you've heard of Israelis. Israelis are far from humble. At least that's my personal view of that. Israelis aren't exactly known for their humbleness. Israelis are very smart people. They're survivors. Um, where I would confuse maybe humbleness is if you look at what Israel was in 1945 and what it was in 1948 when it was becoming an independent country. Israel on May 5th will celebrate its 74th, I believe, 74th year of independence. And you realize that they've built a oasis in the desert across the whole thing. I mean, if you go to Beersheba, which is the cyber capital, Ben Gurion University had a bunch of ads there about if you want to learn cyber, you go to Beersheba University because 8200 is here, and the like all of the big cybersecurity companies, all of the big R&D is all happening in Beersheba. That was an investment Netanyahu made over a decade ago that's really paid off for Israel. Right? He turned Beersheba, which was a slum city, a lot of crime, um, very poor, into a place today where it's priced like one of the major cities in terms of home ownership. Um, there's just so much there. But the way the government invested in Beersheba and in the university, and then backed it up by putting the IDF ecosystem and then the government technology ecosystem around it, that it's created a real kind of what Georgia trying to do with Fort Gordon, right in Augusta, with 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 Cyber Command moving from Fort Meade to Fort Gordon and the NSA and so forth, and the buildings that Governor Deal built there, the Cyber Center in Georgia, that's really based off of the Beersheba. And Augusta University trying to build a cybersecurity program, um, and it's really fascinating to watch that. Completely, like it's very interesting to see that ecosystem there because that ecosystem is really, really something, and it hugs the people that are in it, right? Um, it really does wrap the people as you get into the ecosystem with so much support. And the same we should be doing here to young entrepreneurs and young companies um, who are really trying to spring up across this entire country. It's not just Augusta, it's Miami, it's Arizona, it's Atlanta, it's Dallas, it's Austin, it's Baltimore, it's all over the place, right? Um, we can do what the Israelis do. We've just got to get there. Um, we've got to understand that it doesn't start in college. It starts in elementary and middle school. It starts with adjusting our curriculum in our schools to what do they really need to learn, and what do we really need to teach. Something very fascinating. Andrew asks a question here: is someone always trying to learn and develop would one benefit from visiting? Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I took a group of CISOs with me to Israel in 2019, pre-pandemic, the summer of 2019. We went to the Tel Aviv University Cyber Week. Really only attended half a day of programming at Cyber Week because it became really, really commercial. I think this year they're finally bringing it back to a more academic type of um, an academic type of agenda. But for a few years there, they kind of lost their direction, and I felt like they were going down the cyber tech RSA, very commercial uh, type of event. I didn't like the 2019 event. It was too sponsored, um, lacked character, felt felt like RSA. I'm hoping this year looks different. Look at the agenda this year. I'm hoping that feedback has resonated with the organizers there, and they go back to bringing in university professors, research, and so much more um, to that. But I took a bunch of CISOs with me. We were about 12, a group of 12 people, and we did a non-vendor trip. So we didn't visit vendors. We visited other CISOs. We looked at other programs, and it was amazing just to learn, just to kind of get the thought process of how they practice cyber and how cybersecurity is adhered to and what standards are do they follow and so forth. Really, really well done. I think this is also Andrew here. How would someone from North America go and experience the cyber community in Israel has to offer? There's a few different ways to do it. There's a bunch of fly-ins that go on during big events in Israel because they want to bring you in for the event, right? They want to get the foot traffic through the door. You can do that. You can do that through the Israeli Ministry of Economic Development, Josh Cohen. He's a great advocate for cyber technology out of the Israeli embassy in DC. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. Um, really great guy. Always took a delegation to Israel just a few months ago for cyber tech. Um, um, and, um, and he's always taking delegations to Israel. Someone, those are going to be more vendor technology based delegations, but it's still a good way to get your foot in the door and kind of start meeting some people. Um, Additionally, reaching out to whatever state you're in. The state of Georgia has a representative in Israel, SEMA, who will gladly help you set up any meetings you want with any Israeli companies and so forth, and really drive forth a interesting visit if that's something you desire as well. Um, so there's a lot in Israel. Additionally, just land in Israel and just go to Yigal Alone 94 and just sit in a coffee shop. Um, you'll meet more cybersecurity professionals there than I think anywhere else in the country outside of Beersheba. Um, so um, a lot to go on there, um, and learn from that community, especially with the way they look at addressing problems, the cultures within the companies, the way leadership addresses work that they do is very, very fascinating. Get to David here. Says, well said, providing the skills of our next generation and equipping them for this new cyber world. Indeed, but it's a lot more than just being a cybersecurity professional, right? It's about finding that passion for technology that goes into understanding how it's built and how it's operated, how it works, and and inciting and triggering the mind to do that at such a young age. And then the school curriculum encouraging it, and the system, the teachers, the parents, the community, really encouraging the children to go after it. You know, looking back at it, how different would a lot of our lives be if we had that kind of system in our schools today? Think of our kids. Um, a lot of you watching and listening have your own children or nieces, nephews, cousins, stepchildren, whatever it may be. Um, Looking at school programming, COVID did open a lot of parents' eyes to what their kids are learning in school, but it also brought to the forefront the idea of how do we get our kids ready for the next economy, right? Because the next economy isn't a service economy. It's not a, there's going to be skilled positions. I think, plumbers, electricians, I don't see those really being AI'd out. I just don't. I do see cashiers being out. Go to McDonald's today. Do you even order from a person anymore? It's all machines. They wanted $15 an hour for a cashier at McDonald's. You know what McDonald's did? They bought a bunch of machines and replaced them. So now they have less people. Like, stuff's really simple. We got to get our kids ready for the next economy. Otherwise, the US economy, the buying power of this nation will go away. And that's the single greatest threat to our business, to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is about internal, it's about zero trust. So you can't globally outsource your cybersecurity talent. You can in some way, but in a zero trust model, it doesn't work. So we've got to start addressing it at our kids' level. I mean, I'm looking at my son who's 6 months old, and I'm just like, where's he better off from an education level? Up until the age of 18, where is he better off? Is he better off? I live in Georgia in a very wealthy, good suburb with great schools, some of the state's best schools. And I'm even wondering if that's good enough for my son. Or would it be better off if he went to school in Israel because of the way their program would give him more opportunities to really find and excel in his passion? Something that I don't think he would get out of the education system in the US unless he went to a private school. Where would he maximize his potential to be what he is destined to be in his life? That's a question I ask myself after this last trip to Israel. Retrospect, my son, who's 6 months old, um, you know, knows no better. But now, as a parent, I'm looking at this and wondering the same thing. And could we devise that change here in the US? Could we make it last? And could it not be a political discussion? Could it not be a right left? Could it be the right discussion to have as parents for our kids? Can we stop focusing on the division of what sets us apart and start focusing on what really brings us together? And that's really our children, the next generation. We want to leave this country in a better place than what we got it. So that's where we need to be. It's just my rant for the show today. Just is, right? But I came back. This was on my heart. It's been on my heart since I landed on Wednesday. And kind of wanted to put it out there. You may not agree with me, and that's okay. I still love you, right? I still do. I still appreciate you. You don't have to agree with me on everything I have to say. Now, there's a lot of politics in schools today, but there shouldn't be, because our kids' future isn't about who's president or who runs Congress or Senate. It should be about what as parents, what we expect the schools that we finance with our taxpayer dollars to teach our kids. Give them the best opportunity to be part of the 21st century economy. And I don't think we're doing that today. I think very few places in the country are doing that today. Very few. 3 years ago, I was in Congress and I met with Congressman Ro Kahana of Silicon Valley. And he talked about how 12-year-olds are building apps in his district, right? Because it's Silicon Valley. But then speak to a different congressman from Oklahoma. Those kids don't even know how to build an app. They don't even know what Python is. They think Python is a snake and not a programming language. That divide in our education system is significant. And we have to address it. Nick here has a comment. I want to read it. My kid's going into kindergarten, and the thoughts around school definitely are something to think about, as it's the state of the rest of their educational path. And this is kindergarten. Indeed, Nick. Nailed it. We're constantly thinking about this. And I know I'm going to have some serious soul searching to do when my son's ready to go into school. I don't know what that's going to look like. I know. Thank you all for spending a little bit of time with me this Friday. I hope my rant didn't offend you, and I'm always willing to have a debate. You agree, disagree, you want to come on the show, you want to have a debate on this, we can. Love it. All for it. I think that only when we speak more about issues and we learn from people who think differently from us can we mature, develop better thoughts and opinions. So with that being said, thank you all for watching today's show. The show will be available in audio format. CyberHub Podcast and CISO Talk Podcast channels on Google, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it. Also on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. You can go check it out. Also our YouTube channel, CyberHub Podcast. You can check it out there. You can catch all the latest. We'll be back Monday. So much more as we, start a new week. Get ready for what's going on this year. Till then, have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and really do appreciate it. And stay cyber safe.
Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends and colleagues. And get all the latest information at cyberhubpodcast.com.